Welcome to 4.4 Cpctc. So first thing we need to know is our 5 triangle congruencies. That's side, 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 angle, side, HL, which is hypotenuse, leg, angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. So the idea is, by definition, congruent triangles, all of their corresponding parts are congruent. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these triangle congruences in order to find out that all of their parts are congruent. So first here, to prove that angle S is congruent to angle U, we need to know that the triangles are congruent. Well, we're given that SV is congruent to UT. We're given that ST is congruent to UV. That's by the diagram. We know that TV is congruent to VT by a reflexive property because they overlap. And this is side, 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 so the triangles are congruent by SSS. So we can now say that angle S is congruent to angle U because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now that seems really long, and it is, so we're going to shorten it, and we're just going to use the abbreviation Cpctc. Stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Why would we use this? Well, here in this question, we know that 2 pairs of sides are congruent and the vertical angles are congruent. So we know that the triangles are congruent by SAS. So due to Cpctc, we know the third pair is also congruent, therefore AB is 18. We will typically use Cpctc in proofs. So here we know that YW bisects XZ and that XY is congruent to YZ. And we're trying to prove that the parts, which are the angles, are congruent. If you're trying to prove that triangles are congruent, we would end with our congruency statements like SAS or SSS. But because we're looking for angles to be congruent, we're going to end with Cpctc. So here, YW bisects XZ by given. We know that XY is congruent to YZ, which was also given. And we know that YW is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. Okay, so XW is congruent to ZY. We see that word bisects, so that's the definition of bisector. And we have 3 pairs of sides, so the triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Therefore, the angles are congruent because Cpctc tells us that because the triangles are congruent, then the parts are congruent. All right, our next proof, this time we're looking for 2 pairs of sides being congruent. Still parts, so we're going to end with Cpctc. PR bisects angle QPS and angle QRS. That was given. We know that PR is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. Now we know the bisect showed up again, so we're going to use the definition of bisector, and we're going to find that angle QPR is congruent to angle SPR. And that's by definition of bisector. And that angle QRP is congruent to angle SRP. And that's also by definition of bisector, because it bisected both angles. Now we have a pair of sides and 2 pairs of angles, and the triangles are congruent, and that side is between the 2 pairs of angles. So this is SASA, and we can now finally say that the sides are congruent by Cpctc. Alright, that is all there is to Cpctc. Good luck on the notes and practice.